Scott. I am so happy to be here. Thank you for that great meditation. When we're meditating, I love the idea of the invitation. It's an invitation to be here, an invitation to hold your belly, an invitation to be motivated, an invitation to spend some time together to get some sort of elevation to something different. You know, change your mind, change your attitude, change the way that you think, change your emotions, and by doing this today, hopefully that will give you some of that. Hopefully you'll change a little bit of your mindset. Hopefully that you'll change the way that you think about yourself and me and what you've heard about me or what you've not heard about me. It doesn't matter. But the best thing is that this is a great opportunity for me just to kind of review my life a little bit. And thank you for the invitation to be here. I've known Evan for it seems like a long time. You know, I was when he started Art for Lauderdale a couple of years ago. I was not a very well-known artist or out there artist, but someone had told me about the project he was doing, and I submitted a couple paintings. He accepted them, and here we go. 4 or 5 years later, I'm standing in a cafe in the middle of Fort Lauderdale on a Friday morning, talking to you guys. But I'll just back up a little bit. I was born in New York City in the 60s. I'm 54 years old. Right? Yeah, Vietnam was going like, I think. It was still a long time ago, right? But the reality was, my parents were both from New York City, but we moved to Pennsylvania when I was a little kid. I found my life as a young person. I was attracted to the water. I went to swimming lessons at a YMCA. My parents dropped me off at a YMCA. I was very well accustomed to swimming, and for some reason, I became a swimmer. And if you know a lot about swimming or the reality of a lot of things, there's not a lot of African American swimmers in the world, especially in the early 70s, right? But that's the way things went, and it's funny because my father, I was talking to my friend Patrick on the way down here. My father was a big time basketball player. It's in his college Hall of Fame. Was in the Eastern League in the 50s. Play with all these people. And then we have this little tiny 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid that can't play basketball, but a swimmer. He's like probably shaking his head to this day. But the reality was, I was a swimmer and took it to very well. And by the time I was like probably 10, 11, 12 years old, I was nationally ranked. And by the time I was 13, 14, I was going to these different meets all over the country, and knew at that point that I was going to get a scholarship to college. And what that really did for me early on was raise my ego level to a level that most people shouldn't have, right? Became an obnoxious, I won't say aggressive kid, but but my shit didn't stink, so to speak, right? In my mind. And it showed it in the way that I behaved. But it worked, right? My life as an athlete turned into a life of just thinking that I was better than everybody else, right? And that really doesn't work when it comes to adulthood and getting along with other people and having a good attitude and just behaving, so to speak. So, as time went on and I'm in high school, I'm getting all these scholarship offers to different colleges, but I'm also starting to drink. And as the story will unfold, drinking and doing drugs is a huge part of what informs my whole entire life. Okay, I started drinking as a sophomore in high school, drinking in college, drinking in law school, drinking as a lawyer, doing drugs. It was a big factor in how I lived and how I behaved and how I existed. That was the life that I knew more than anything. I also started, but we'll back up as a creative person. I also started painting early on. My grandmother was a painter. When I was about 10 or 11, she had died, and she had a house in the Bronx, and she had a studio in the basement of her house. And I remember distinctly, we're at the funeral, after the funeral's over, and we're in the basement, and there's all these paints and canvases and everywhere in the basement of the house. My mom said out loud, "What am I going to do with all this stuff?" And I said to myself, I said to my mom, Mom, I'll take it. So basically, we were living in Pennsylvania at the time. I grabbed all the brushes, grabbed all the paints that I could, put them in my suitcase, and we took them back to Pennsylvania, and I started painting, right? So not for any other reason that I wanted to maybe have a connection with my grandmother, who I didn't know that well, since we were living in Pennsylvania. She was in New York. She had just died. And I was basically really an inquisitive kid that was interested in many different things. I was always interested, I wasn't really a reader, but I was always a visual person, liked colors, liked magazines, liked all these other things beside, paying attention to what's going on, in front of me. But, so here I am, a painter, a swimmer, and ultimately growing myself as to a full-time drunk by the time I'm in high school, right? And I'm painting, but most of my younger years were focused on athletics. There's no doubt about it. So I get to college, and I end up getting a degree in political science because I'll back that up a little bit too. I loved political science. I loved let's say, there's a lot going on in the Clinton years and just the CIA and the wars and other things. And I remember I loved this particular class in college, and I said I could be a history or a poli-sci professor. I can get a PhD in this stuff. I'm a pretty smart guy, right? So I went to my advisor at school, and I was like, I want to go to grad school for political science. And she was like, who are you? So immediately I thought I was like, some racist lady. She doesn't think I could do anything. So I went across the street, applied to law school, got in law school, and became a lawyer. My first resentment in life, right? Anyway, so the painting life, the creative life wasn't a big part of it then. I go to law school. I become a public defender outside of Philadelphia. I spent some years doing that. After I'm done as a public defender, I work at a law firm defending doctors in medical malpractice cases. After I'm done with that, I work as an entertainment law firm in Philly, just doing litigation, running around, being like in my 30s, in my suit, running around Philly, and with my cocaine in my pocket and my, happy hours and all that stuff. So at some point, the alcohol life took over, right? And I was doing lots and lots of cocaine, and as the story goes, when you do lots and lots of drugs, I couldn't breathe because my nose was screwed up with cocaine, right? So someone suggested to me, why don't you smoke crack? And I said, lawyers don't smoke crack. And then obviously this lawyer was smoking crack, and that ended up a 2 or 3 year, I basically got a PhD in insanity. Life went downhill very quickly, not quickly enough, but went through, all my savings, my 401k, stole money from people, ended up in a treatment center, and then ended up in Florida to begin a period of recovery. This is 2006. So that's how I got here in 2006. Ended up in Florida as a broke crackhead lawyer with no future, with no options except for, hope, basically. So, but before I came to Florida, one of the last things that I ended up doing, I started to paint again, and I'm doing all these drugs, and I'm like smoking weed all day, and I'm painting and trying to do whatever I wanted to do. And I was living in a part of Philadelphia called the Art Museum area, and there was a bunch of very cool people that were running around there. And a friend of mine was the producer of a show called Trading Spaces. Okay, and she approached me and a friend of mine and said, "Do you guys want to be on this show, Trading Spaces?" And my house is basically at that point was just a crackhead's version of an art studio, just like stuff everywhere, all over the place. So we ended up getting on the show, and I was just begging. It was weird because I'm thinking about that today. I spent a lot of time, when they were, we knew that we were going to get on the show about 6 months before, and I was like, going downhill every time, and I was begging myself, hopefully intervention shows up and not Trading Spaces, right? It was that bad, but they showed up anyway. So I get on the show. They make my whole entire house into that room I was into an art gallery. It was gorgeous, right? Which I ultimately destroyed by doing what I do, but I still had the art. Even as a confused drug-addled person, I was still engaged in being a creative person. Looking back at the paintings, they're very, very dark, very different than they are now. But I was still engaged in this sort of stuff. So, I get to Florida. I get sober. I'm working my first job was working at Starbucks. As a barista, making $7 an hour. I go ultimately do these different jobs, but I start to paint again, right? And the reality is, and what I really wanted to focus on today is, what holds us back as creative people, the main thing that I found over time is the word perfection, right? Perfectionism is what holds so many people back in being creative people, being business people, being regular people, being people that are trying to meditate. I'm not doing this right. This is not perfect, right? So when I came into recovery, I took on a different mindset of how I wanted to treat my life outside of my brain, so to speak, right? And that involved a lot of, thinking that there are no mistakes, that there are no when I do certain things, especially as an artist, I want to be able to paint outside the lines without too much, internal stress, right? I want to be able to finish a painting. I want to be able to meditate or get sober or talk to people without a lot of judgment and a lot of, allow people to make their own mistakes. And that is really what, has enabled me over the past, probably 6, 7, 8 years as an artist to elevate myself to a point where I can, be a full-time artist and talk about these things to people and just engage the world in a completely different way. As an athlete, I was always trying to get that perfect stroke, the perfect start, the perfect turn, lift the perfect amount of weight to be that perfect athlete, or as a lawyer to make that perfect argument with the court, or with the judge, or with my clients, or tell them what they needed to know, right away, give them the perfect answer. And and in reality, it doesn't exist, right? But because I like a lot of people, are so caught up in the life of perfectionism, I'm missing out on an opportunity to change and to achieve and to grab onto momentum that sometimes is there, but I'm too busy trying to fix what's over here. I'm going to miss it, right? I'm going to miss it. So many times, and this happens in real life, people, I get fired from a job, or I lose an opportunity, or whatever. I'm looking at the closed door, right? And the open door's over here saying, come over here. We're here waiting for you, but I'm too busy looking at the past, right? And what meditation and mindset and being in the present moment allows me to do is to understand my life backwards, but live it forward. That is something I've learned and I've tried to implement in my life over the past few years, which allows me to, take direction from other people, watch other people that are achieving things, and do what they do, and not, and not be so caught up in what I'm doing it right. When I first met Evan, it was, I'll never forget. It was like I started to learn to walk into places, with a grateful attitude. So the great word is grateful cafe, because I walk into places with a mindset of gratitude, right? I remember where I was at Art for Lauderdale. I remember dropping off my paintings, and it was the first year of the show, so it wasn't completely as organized as they wanted it to be, of course, right? But I remember an artist came in and she put her art down on the floor and started to give directions to whoever was hanging the art. It was like, I want this to be here, I want this to be here. And I was just like, is this how people do things around here? Just making demands on other people that have no business making, I'm just here I'm here to have a good time, right? But, and I remember, I was just like, I do not want to be that person. I do not want to be that person. I remember going to a different art show which was the the Container Show up in West Palm Beach, where it was another new like art project where they gave a lot of artists shipping containers to make art studios. It was a whole thing. It was the first time the show happened. It was a hot weekend, and a lot of the things that were supposed to have happened didn't happen, right? But I came in there with a place of gratitude. But I remember at the end of the show, a lot of the people were sitting there just complaining about this invitation that they got to be at this space, complaining about what was wrong with it, not what was right? But I met a woman named Nora at the time who's now one of my great mentors and who I work with, and she was like, "Why aren't you complaining about like everyone else is?" And I was like, I'm having a good time. I'm here from a place of gratitude. And she's like, "I want to work with you." And I was like, okay, not knowing anything about her really too much. I get a phone call, a couple months later. I'm going to Art Basel with her. I'm making a 20-foot, inflatable X. This is one of my projects. I had a solo show with her in Miami. I mean, just that one invitation to not engage with the negativity brought me to a point where, it changed the trajectory of my life. Not my art career, my life, right? And that's really what the mindset of not, everything's not always going to be perfect, right? It's not always going to be you go to an art show or you're not always going to have my art's not going to be in the space that I want it to be. It might be, it's not always going to be to your liking, right? So how do I deal with that? I need to let go of control, and especially for me who comes from a place where I've learned over time that my way doesn't really work, right? Even though with my great resume of an All-American athlete, litigation attorney, I was also in rehab, working at this 9 to 5. It doesn't always balance out the way that you want it to. So when I let go of this perfectionism, in creativity, I can jump on the momentum and do more. Not always do better, but just do more and populate my inventory to a point where it's like I got choices, right? Choices, but more than anything, I love this idea of how is perfectionism killing us as artists, as creatives, because it's like, I worked in, with empty spaces, and I'm around other artists a lot, and, it's some people spend, which is fine, I guess, they spend weeks and months and years on one painting, and they're not allowing themselves to expand their portfolio. I was taught that as an artist, and I'm doing this now. I'm working more on 3D sort of sawing into wood and building these little toys and doing T-shirts and it's all the things, and these are the hand painted T-shirts, right? I really it's like it's so funny. I've encouraged other people to do. I said, your art would look great on a T-shirt. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, you can paint on a canvas, right? Why can't you paint on a piece of fabric, right? And because it's the fear, it's fear, right? And it's negative thinking. It's thinking that I can't do it right, and it kills us. I work do a lot of facilitating at drug and mental health treatment centers, right? And a lot of times I will put out the paints on the table, and they will, the biggest thing is I don't paint, I can't paint. No, and the answer is that you won't paint, right? You won't. So the great thing that I'm able to hopefully sometimes do with people is to give them the invitation to try, right? Just to grab a brush and touch it to the paint, put it to the piece of paper or the canvas or whatever it is, and move the brush around, and all of a sudden you're painting. And what we're also doing is we're meditating. we're meditating in motion. Where what we're doing is we're spending time focused on one thing, so that the distractions of our lives, are not going to inhibit us from thinking that we have to do this right. We have limited time, limited space, and the more that I'm able to push into that mindset, life is great. But if I'm too concerned with, if I'm doing this right, is this color is perfect, or is this color right, or it's just it's not worth it. The main thing that I developed this when I started to do this facilitating at these treatment centers. I called the program Free Swim, right? Because as a swimmer, all I ever did was go. If you ever into a pool, you see that there's black lines on the bottom of the pool, and all I did was go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for the longest time. From 6 years old to 21, I was going back and forth, and then when I was a lifeguard, I remember that the biggest joy that people got was when you said you shut down the lap pool, and it's like they called it free swim, and all the kids went crazy. They're flopping around, playing Marco Polo, or doing whatever they do, right? And that's what I want to encourage people to do when they're being creative. Live in a free swim mindset. Get out of your going back and forth. Get out of your comfort zone. Get out of the box that you're used to, and to change, right? And most of all, to try, right? Don't be scared to do a T-shirt. Don't be scared to paint on a big canvas, right? Because I never did it before, right? Don't be scared I just started to use resin, right? I never used resin in my life, right? But I had resin. Someone gave me resin for Christmas or something, right? And I'm sitting in my little studio up in Lake Worth, and I was like, I'm going to use resin today. And I was like, I love resin, and it's all, and only because of my mindset of that it doesn't have to be perfect. I was able to have fun with it, right? Oh my God, there's bubbles in it, or who cares, right? I have to have I know people that use like a blowtorch sometimes with resin. I YouTube that. I don't have a blowtorch, right? Am I gonna not try? No, right? So there's all these things that the mindset of perfectionism that you can turn that I've turned around, to been able to create, been able to become a sought after artist where people are giving me commissions for thousands of dollars, and it blows your mind, right? From a guy that more than anything should be dead, right? The way that it was a point in my life where I'm smoking crack and shooting heroin and begging for change on the streets of Philadelphia, to where I'm making paintings, having a studio, going facilitating in treatment centers, and helping my friends and other people come into the art world, and to just to grow, right? So more than anything, I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate being reminded of the invitation that I can get every single day by just waking up and showing up, and more than anything, reminding myself that my mantra is that there are no mistakes. I am not a mistake. You can live with you can jump onto momentum constantly, or you can keep looking at the back door, the closed door, when the world's over here saying, "Come on in," But if I don't show up, I'm going to miss it. So I thank you for your invitation, your time, and your listening. I appreciate it.